Ask a Therapist. That's me. I'm going to answer your questions about switching therapists, finding the right therapist, and just general therapy issues. Mended Light. I asked you in the Mended Light community for your questions about therapy, particularly about finding the right therapist, how to know if you should switch to a different therapist, and a couple things about what it's like to be a therapist. So let's do this. How do therapists feel when a client tells them that they want a new therapist? I've wanted to switch therapists because I felt like I didn't have enough of a connection with mine. Any therapist who is a professional, and by that I mean they show up professionally, not just that they are licensed and educated, but they show up as a professional. It's not going to be offended in the slightest. Let me tell you, every therapist knows that they are a fit for some people and not a fit for others. At least every good therapist knows that it's not personal. And even if it is, so what? You're the client. You need healing. It's not about my ego. It's not about what I need. It's about what you need. So how do therapists feel? If they're good therapists, that's fine. There have been times when people have wanted to switch and not work with me anymore where I was unhappy about it, but not because that's what they wanted, but because I knew that I could have shown up for them differently and I just didn't know how to at the time. And then it was kind of like, oh, I just learned a very important lesson that I'm going to take with a different client and approach this situation a different way. But this person wants the door, and I don't blame them, right? Especially when I was a younger therapist, that happened. Sometimes it comes down to personality. I've had people not want to work with me because I'm too silly. Even though I can be very serious, I joke around a lot, and I've had people get offended by that, and I'm like, well, that's okay. Find a more somber, serious therapist because I'm looking for people who want to work with me and what I bring to the table. I've had people move, and geographically I couldn't work with them anymore, or decide that they wanted to find somebody on their insurance, or they wanted to do pastoral counseling with a member of their church, or any number of reasons, and it's all fine. I've had people work with me and get as much help and growth from me as they were going to get, and had a great experience. And then they said, this is exactly what I needed for this aspect of my life, but now I want to see a specialist in this area. Especially when it comes to psychosis. That's not something that I do a lot of work with because I do a lot of family counseling and a lot of trauma counseling. And people will say, I'm going to go find somebody who specializes in this. And I'm like, hats off to you, do what you got to do. It's my very long-winded way of saying therapists don't take it personally. And if they do, they need to grow up. Next question. How long should you try with a therapist before considering switching therapists because you're not seeming to make progress? What are the steps to try before that? It depends on the nature of the disconnection, right? If you feel a disconnection because your therapist is acting unethically or projecting their values onto you or trying to get you to change who you are, then you should probably change immediately. And also, depending on how severe it is, report them. If it just feels like you're not syncing up, I always say, speaking of what steps to take first, be very specific about what you're looking for and about what's not working for you. I would much rather, as a therapist who, I love helping people, but also this is my livelihood, right? This is how I put food on it. Well, now YouTube is a lot of my livelihood as well, but you get what I'm saying. This is my livelihood. This is how I put food on the table for my family. I would much rather a client tell me how I'm not showing up for them the way they need, or how I can meet their needs better and give me an opportunity to make that pivot, than for them to just say, this isn't working, I'm done. I've had people do that. I've had people tell me, hey, this isn't really working for me and here's why. Do you want to keep working together, or do you want to try this different approach? And I try the different approach or the different focus, and it's very satisfactory for them, and we're both glad that we stayed together. And so if your therapist seems open-minded and willing to pivot, this is like, good therapy is, you remember those old Burger King commercials, like you can have it your way? You want a Whopper, but you don't want pickles, or you do want pickles, but you don't want onions. Good therapy is a lot like that. You need to be able to have it your way. And I think a good therapist will either pivot with you or say, yeah, it's not something I'm willing to do or able to do because of it's not my area of expertise, so let me refer you out. But definitely, as soon as you really feel like, yeah, I've given this a shot and it's not going to meet my needs, be done and find somebody else. Because again, this isn't about satisfying your therapist's ego or assuring that they don't get their feelings hurt. It's about you getting the help that you need and the support that you need. And back to the other question, I talked about people who stopped working with me for any myriad of reasons. I've also had people come to me from somebody else, and I was exactly the right fit for them, and I was exactly what they needed. One of the reasons why I don't take it personally is because I know I'm exactly what some people need, and for others, I'm definitely not, and that's okay. How would you recommend finding the right therapist? Finding the right therapist comes down to a handful of things. I mean, on a practical level, what your financial situation looks like, whether you're trying to find somebody who takes insurance or if you're willing to pay out of pocket. Sometimes people with more expertise or more experience only work with out-of-pocket clients. So expertise, specifically, what are the issues that you are struggling with? I am a marriage and family therapist. I'm an LMFT, and then I've picked up a lot of trauma training and certification along the way. And so those are kind of my areas of expertise. I would not recommend seeing me for, again, psychosis or several other issues where I'm like, that's not in my wheelhouse. Similarly, I've known people who go to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist for couples therapy, and that's hit or miss. Sometimes they've picked up some good skills along the way, but is that their area of expertise? Sometimes it works. A lot of times it doesn't, because again, what's the area of emphasis? So start with practical, start with what do I need, what are the specialties, and then it comes down to personality. How safe do I feel with this person? How non-judged do I feel? How open can I be? And how much does their counsel and the questions that they ask and the tools that they give me actually work? And so a lot of therapists offer 15-minute consultations or consultations at a discounted rate to come in and see them for the first time. Other therapists like myself, we have a lot of content on YouTube. I get a lot of clients because people come to me and they say, I feel like I already know you and I know your personality and I know what you're all about and what your worldview is when it comes to therapy, and I feel like you're a fit for me. And some therapists on their websites check the reviews on Google, check the reviews on Health Grades, watch their introductory videos, and recognize that for a lot of people, you don't find the therapist you're wanting to work with the first time, and to make that okay. How do you deal with burnout as a therapist? What acts of self-care do you find helpful in maintaining yourself in this work? And then they add, I am a therapist myself and try my best to maintain healthy amounts of self-care to stave off burnout. Don't lose the things that you always loved. I love exercise, and for a long time, I neglected my health. And I'm trying to get back into shape. It's harder now than it used to be, but it's rewarding. And so I make time for exercise because a lot of the stress or the sadness or the anger I can put into the workout and get those positive endorphins flowing. You guys know this. I love to watch movies, TV shows, love to read books, play board games with my kids, play video games with my kids. When the weather's good, go for walks, go for hikes, go swimming. And so I just find the things that I enjoy doing and I make sure I make time for them. And then also sleep. This isn't just for therapists, it's for everybody. Get enough sleep. It'll help you. And then I also, no matter how heavy the clinical day is, I punch out. When the day is done, the day is done. I don't bring my work home with me. When I'm going for walks or I'm getting exercise or going for drives, I will think about my clients and think about solutions for them and think about their struggles. But I only do it if it's productive because I'm thinking of something that's gonna help. I don't do it if it's just me stewing on how sad their story is or how upsetting the history is, because that's gonna burn me out and I can't show up the next day ready to go and ready to be present for people. Do you believe that your job as a therapist made parenthood easier for you? As in, if you had chosen a different career path, do you think it would have been more challenging? In theory, being a family therapist should have made parenting more easy for me. Parenting has been the greatest challenge and the greatest joy of my life, and continues to be. Because parenting reveals about you weaknesses that you didn't know were there. So for example, I prided myself for 25, 26, almost 30 years of my life before I became a parent, prided myself on, I don't have an angry side. I'm a pleasant, happy, fun-loving person. Sometimes I get a little frustrated or annoyed, but I don't get angry. And then I had kids, and I was like, oh, there it is. Because so much of the power struggle that can emerge between their will versus my will, me wanting to keep them safe, me wanting to teach them values, me wanting to teach them how to survive in the world and grow up to be good and decent people, versus, just childhood impulses where they just kind of do and say whatever they feel into adolescence, and trying to navigate feeling disrespected by that or frustrated by that. And the reason I bring all this up is because I think being a family therapist gave me skills to manage those emotions when they came up, and how to process them, and how to have healthy conversations with my kids. And when I get it wrong or lose my temper, how to come back and take accountability and have the full house moment. The bedside chat and the hug and I love you, Dad, and I love you, son, like that sort of thing. But the emotions themselves and the challenges themselves, you can't fully prepare for them, you just have to experience them. We've got a whole series about parenting our kids, and it's been fun. You've often said that sometimes a therapist just isn't a right fit for someone. How exactly would I know if it's not a fit? I mean, I addressed this a little bit before in this video, talking about expertise, talking about practicality of your financial or insurance situation, and then talking about personality. But how would you know if it's not a fit? The well, duh answer is, well, does it feel like it's working? But I think the more profound answer is, a good therapist is going to have that balance of you feel supported and seen and cared for, but also challenged and called out on your. And there's a difference between I feel disrespected because I'm not humble enough to take this feedback, or I feel disrespected because I am sensitive, and I feel disrespected because my therapist was disrespectful. And that involves taking a self-inventory. You need to feel safe in therapy, safe but challenged and pushed. That to me is how you know that you've got a good fit as a therapist. What I want to know from you, what questions do you have that have come up for you as I've been answering these? Or what advice would you give to any of the questions I answered in this video? Let me know in the comments below. I've also got another video for you to watch right now. Come on, you got 10 minutes, you got 15 minutes. This is good stuff. We got a good thing going on here. It's called Why Traditional Therapy is Failing. A lot of traditional therapy works, but just as anything, it's time to evolve. There's more that can be done, and I talk about that in that video, which you can watch right here somewhere. So until next time, keep shining. We need your light.